Well, hello class, and welcome to week 7 of BACC 531 Managerial Accounting. Hope each of you are doing well and that your week is off to a great start so far. We are quickly reaching the conclusion of our course and our bi-term together, so as we hit the home stretch, looking at the last 2 weeks of class, this week and of course next week, which is week 8, we still have several important things to journey through. You still have several important assignments to tackle, as we'll talk about as we journey through this little bit of an overview. But I want to give you a reminder up front that week 8 is an abbreviated week. That means it's just a little bit shorter than the norm, so make sure you pay attention to the due dates that are reflected both in the course deadlines in iLearn as well as in the course syllabus. But do want to remind you that week 8, that is next week, is a little bit of an abbreviated week. So our due dates come just a little bit earlier. You have just a little bit less time. Your work, however, has been adjusted. Your workload next week has been adjusted, and I'll just say prorated appropriately to reflect that as you have a more focused assortment of both content and assignments next week. This week we're going to examine 2 chapters, those being chapters 13 and 14. Chapter 13 will examine the topic of the statement of cash flows, while chapter 14 will deal with the topic of financial statement analysis. In chapter 13, with regards to cash flows, you're going to look at how to prepare and interpret the statement of cash flows. Statement of cash flows is crucial because it helps us to track, as the name implies, cash, and more specifically, cash inflows and outflows related to operating, investing, and financing activities. In traditional accounting approaches, what we would call accrual accounting, what's required by U.S. GAAP, and the general idea that also underlies how we do management accounting, managerial accounting, we're not looking chiefly at the nature of when cash is paid or received. The reason being is because we're focused on the legal and the economic substance of various transactions rather than a strict consideration of when cash is going to be paid or received in relation to different transactions. Sometimes cash can be received earlier than when a transaction legally settles. Prepaid items, unearned income are examples of those types of situations. Sometimes cash comes in later than when a transaction settles. For example, if you purchase something in a corporate context and sign a purchase agreement or issue a purchase order and secure and receive that item, the legal liability in terms of that settled purchase arrangement isn't necessarily when payment actually occurs. Rather, as you've seen and as we've explored throughout this course, you have a settled responsibility to pay for that item, and thus a liability is legally incurred at the point at which the item is received, the transaction settles. For the seller, the revenue is recognized. For the buyer, the expense is incurred. Cash may be paid or received, depending on which side of that transaction you're on, at some later point. For example, it's very common in business arrangements to give your customers 30 days, 45 days, even something up to 90 days to pay, just according to the industry and the typical practices of your area of business. In some cases, it might even be a longer window than that due to certain industry expectations. For example, in healthcare, there's oftentimes a long window between when a service is provided to a patient, and thus that revenue associated with that is then legally incurred from the standpoint of a settled transaction, and the point at which the actual payment is received in part from the patient and in part from the insurance provider if the patient has health insurance. So again, many examples of how that timing difference works. The statement of cash flows comes into importance because it helps us to track the cash side of things. Apart from the accrual accounting approach that's looking at revenue recognition and expense recognition perspectives and standards, we're looking, when it comes to the nature of the statement of cash flows, at the actual inflows and outflows of cash, something that is also necessary even as it's distinct from the traditional revenue and expense recognition approach. In chapter 14, we're going to turn our attention to financial statement analysis generally, and in particular the ways that managers use financial statements to assess the financial health of companies. If you think about speaking of healthcare, going to see a physician or a doctor, you expect that when they make judgments concerning the state of your health, or when they make diagnoses or assessments of your health condition, that they're going to use information to inform that judgment, something that we would call collectively your chart. It's not always as simple as the traditional chart from years ago. For those of you that work in healthcare, you'll understand that a patient's chart encompasses a staggering array of data, as a matter of fact, concerning the information, the tests, the vital statistics, and other information that relate to that particular patient. Collectively, however, all that information is harnessed by a provider to make informed judgments about the health and the corresponding course of treatment for a given patient. In the same way, managers have to have financial information in order to make informed judgments about the financial health of a company and what they're going to do in terms of strategy in relation to that financial health. That requires data, a chart, so to speak, about the health of the company, and the financial statements constitute that chart. So in Chapter 14, we're going to back up and tie a lot of things that we've talked about throughout this bi-term together, looking at how to examine trends in key financial data, how to compare financial data across companies, and how to analyze various financial ratios. As you do that, and as you explore the content in these two chapters, you're going to have 4 key assignments that you'll need to work through this week. In addition to reviewing the narrated PowerPoint slides and the concept overview videos that are provided for you week by week, you will have graded assignments in the form of your Week 7 reading assignment in Connect, your Week 7 lecture video quiz taken in Connect, your Week 7 exercises also in Connect, and then lastly your Week 7 data analytics assignment. So you have this last data analytics requirement that will be part of your Week 7 assignments. So as you work through those, I want to encourage you as always, if you have any questions, any concerns in relation to that, please reach out and let me know. I'll be glad to help with those. As a sneak peek, a bit of a sneak preview for next week, Week 8, you will have 2 assignments in Week 8. Those assignments, as you'll see reflected on the course syllabus, consist of your Week 8 final exam. That will be taken through Connect. And then you will also have a practical connection assignment, sort of applying on a reflection basis the comprehensive total of what you've learned, thinking about how this integrates with your professional context, your own professional career. This is, I hope, an enjoyable assignment for you. I know it's one that I particularly enjoy getting to review, getting to grade as your professor, thinking and seeing about your thoughts concerning what you've learned throughout the course of this term and how it either has informed or you expect it to inform your professional career into the future. We'll talk more about that as we move forward into Week 8. Again, that's a sneak preview, so don't panic and think you've also got those to do this week. You don't. Final exam and the practical connection assignment are due next week, but just to give you a heads up, that's what to expect as you move into Week 8. With that, as always, if you have any questions over the content for this week, Week 7, or if you have questions in advance about Week 8 material, please let me know. I'll be glad to help with that and look forward to hearing from you. You can reach me again by email at jake.brock@ucumberlands.edu. With that, I want to thank each of you for watching and listening and wish you a fantastic week ahead.